You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello, everybody. Welcome here to another edition of Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. I am your host, Skyler Timmons, and joined once again wearing what almost looks like a Peagle hat, straight from his vacation in Texas. It's Evan Lang.
I love the Peagle. Unironically, I adore the Peagle. And if the Rangers City Connect, because this is the last year of their current one, if their City Connect next year does not have the Peagle in some way, shape, or form, I will be very upset.
There you go. Yeah, fun times. It's a sad day as we record this too, Evan. The Nuggets are now out of the playoffs.
Yeah, rough day for Colorado sports. Rough 24 hours for Colorado sports fans. The Dallas Stars advance to the Western Conference Finals. The Nuggets get crushed by the Oklahoma City Thunder in Game 7, and their season ends. And the Rockies were the Rockies tonight. And what's frustrating, I think, about the Nuggets is that they're still the opposite of the Rockies, where they gave us hope, they gave us expectations where there were none before.
Mm-hmm.
Like going towards the end of the season, they had just fired their coach, they had just fired their GM, and it was like, all right, well, the Nuggets are probably going to be a pretty quick first round exit, and then we will have to take a look and see what happens over the offseason heading into next season. And then they won against the Clippers, and they took arguably the best team in the NBA this season in the Oklahoma City Thunder to Game 7. And yeah, they got crushed today, dealing with a bunch of different injuries, a visibly hobbled Aaron Gordon, who still played despite a grade 2 hamstring strain, Jamal Murray having been sick for the last couple of days, MPJ, who's been hurt the whole playoffs so far. And yeah, it was an ugly and sad and disappointing loss, but it's the complete opposite of the Rockies, who we came into this season with no expectations, with no hopes, and they've somehow managed to disappoint us even then.
Yeah, pretty much. But we'll see what happens with the Nuggets. Hey, and that was an entirely winnable series for them too. They just didn't close out a couple of those games. So they gave the Oklahoma City Thunder a run for their money, probably more than they thought they would. It helps when you have the true MVP on your team, Evan.
Yeah, they made the Thunder work for it.
Mm-hmm. And it just goes to show that one man cannot truly do it all. You have to support him with a good cast.
Yeah, as good as Nikola Jokic is, he can't do it all.
Mm-hmm.
I was joking with Mac earlier because he's talking about how the front office is really let down the team with their signings. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, we signed Dario Saric. Clearly that fixed everything, but it really was for the majority of the season. The Nuggets had no bench.
Mm-hmm. But hey, as they say, that's basketball.
Whatever happens, that's basketball.
New head coach of the Nuggets, Bud Black.
Just trade off. Michael Malone comes the next manager of the Rockies.
Yeah, see what these guys can do. But that brings us, Evan, here. Perfect segue into our first thing. In true Affected by Altitude fashion, we recorded an episode, and then the Rockies just decided to drop a bombshell after we record, and then Evan was already heading onto a plane to go on his vacation. So I record like half an hour of me sharing thoughts about Bud Black getting fired by the Rockies. A kind of surprising move that it felt inevitable, Evan, but we just didn't know if it would ever happen. Like it felt like it was something that needed to happen. So you can find my response over on our YouTube channel and the podcast feed of my own reactions to it. But while we're here, Evan, and I've got you, what were your reactions to seeing the Bud Black news, and what do you make of it now that we've had a week to sit on this news and as the Rockies have gone forward?
My first thought was, are you kidding me right now? Because we had finished recording the podcast maybe 2 hours maximum before the news dropped. I was literally getting onto a bus to go to the airport And I had also just written what I thought was a very good article about Dick Montfort and the Colorado Rockies and not doing anything that had to be shelved entirely. And so I was like, well, that stinks for me. But then what really made me laugh is it's the Rockies' incredible sense of just having the worst timing for pretty much everything. Like, they fired Bud Black. They allegedly made the decision that morning or the night before after the Rockies got obliterated by the Padres 21 to nothing. But they waited until the Rockies won against the Padres on that Sunday getaway game. It was a fun game where German Marquez pitched well, everybody played pretty well, and the Rockies came away with a solid victory. And they're all celebrating in the clubhouse, and then they announce that Bud Black got fired, and the clubhouse vibe turns absolutely somber. And you see, guys like German and other guys who are, pretty shaken by the firing, especially German, who was tearing up because, Bud Black is the only manager he's ever known in his big league career. But so bad timing, but bad timing
more than anything.
Bad timing is better than no timing, and the Rockies needed to do something. And even if, because I know there's plenty of people out there who say, what is Bud Black supposed to do with this roster, with this talent level? Even then, though, it was time for Bud Black to go. And it is unfortunate that it had to go this way, especially because we've said it time and time again. The Rockies and Bud Black both had a perfect out at the end of last season that would avoid hurt feelings of just an amicable parting of ways at the end of a contract, and they chose to bring Bud Black for a second season, and it ends in tears. And, I wasn't sure if they were going to fire Bud this season, but if they did, it was going to play out like this, and it's unfortunate because for Bud Black, the person, I wish him nothing but the best, but as Bud Black, the manager, he never should have been back this season to begin with. And all of his worst managerial habits have been on display for the entire season. The bad starting pitching management, the bad bullpen management, the clear favoritism of veterans over the younger players, the weird lineup builds, the Bud Black masterclass, as it were. And it's a shame because, this probably does mean at 65 years, 67 now?
Yeah, he's 67.
His managerial career is probably over. He's probably done as a big league manager.
We never know.
You never know, but that's what my gut's telling me right now, especially with his overall record as a manager being honestly a pretty poor one, where he's only got 4 winning seasons in his entire managerial career.
Yeah, you never know. And baseball's weird like that, where it was the same thing with the Rockies and like rest of baseball. They really like Bud Black. They respect him as a good baseball mind, which you can. Yeah, totally fine. And like, it's the weird thing with how managers are treated, where yes, is it always the manager's fault, Evan? No, it's not. Was it all Bud Black's fault? No. But the wrong manager on the wrong team, they have problems. And Bud Black was not the answer for the Rockies right now. We've said it time and time again. He was the answer in 2017, 2018. I'd say, Evan, up to 2021. So that 4-year window, as soon as Arenado left, that was pretty much the end of when Bud Black was the right man for the job anymore. As soon as Jeff Bridich is out, Bill Schmidt should have come in, and once he gets that gets the full position in, September 2021, okay, Bud, appreciate you, but we want to go a different direction. We need a new guy now. It was that continuity there. I think that's the breaking point, is when Arenado left, that's when Bud Black stopped being the man for the job.
Yeah. I can definitely see that line of reasoning. I honestly think maybe 2020, 2021, probably would have been the best to hire a new manager anyway. Managers do often get scapegoated. I look at the Baltimore Orioles, who just fired Brandon Hyde, their manager, after a very disappointing start to the season. But they have some very good players on there. But that's another one where you wonder how much it's the fault of the manager, because their general manager, Mark Elias, did literally nothing but budget moves, your bargain based moves. You know, you lost Corbin Burns and you didn't really do anything else to replace that talent loss.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the true ones where you wonder, well, how much of it is on there? And it's the same with Derek Shelton in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
But for Bud Black, we all knew coming into the season that he was not the right guy for the job anymore. And it would have been so much better just to, especially when the season, we all knew the Rockies were going to be bad this season. We all assumed that the Rockies were going to have a losing season.
Yeah.
And so why not kick the tires on somebody else? And now that somebody else is Warren Schaeffer. What did not surprise me is that they also fired bench coach Mike Redmond, who in a lot of circumstances, the bench coach becomes the interim manager. But Mike Redmond is Bud Black's guy through and through. He always has been. And so I am not surprised at all that both of them were, sent packing at the same time. Honestly, though, I'm surprised that they didn't do more. Although I do know that you can't fire the entire big league coaching staff all in one go. There's just not enough people to spread around, and they've already had to make a bunch of moves that affect their minor league teams and switching things around. Jordan Pacheco getting called up from AAA. You got Nick Wilson being reassigned from minor league hitting coordinator to a big league hitting coach, and you've had to shuffle some people around. But I cannot see this being the end of everything that they do. I think by the end of the season, coaching staff wise, they're probably going to clear house the rest of the way.
Yeah, it just probably Daryl Scott is the guy that would be on the hot seat now, but would be on the hottest seat in that coaching staff because he's the guy who's been there. And he's another guy who's been in this organization for a long time, Evan. Since 2009, he's been working in this organization, worked his way up through the minors, and then has not really been successful at the big league level. So surprising that he was he's the one that's survived everything up to this point. No, if they hadn't fired Bud Black, if they wanted to go another scapegoat, you can fire Daryl Scott there, but they decided to go to the top of the head and everything. But we'll touch kind of transitioning here of Bud Black. Fortunate, like you said, that it had to happen this way, but it was a needed change. A younger, new voice gets in there to help try and turn the ship around or just help try to change the environment. Now, you got to try something. I think that's the biggest thing I find of, well, it's not Bud Black's fault. Why did you fire him? You got to change something. You got to do something. And often, it's the manager has to go. He's the leader in the clubhouse. You got to change it. And so that's what they're doing. And as a result, Warren Schaeffer is the new manager, Evan. And we've had a week now to watch Schaeff manage his first 6 games as a big league manager. Finally got his first win on Saturday against the Arizona Diamondbacks in a wild offensive output game.
Probably one of the most fun games of the season that we've had so far.
Offensive-wise, pitching was not great. But have you seen any difference, Evan, in just watching the games or how they're managed? Have you seen a difference as opposed to what we've seen with Bud Black? Or is it just kind of maybe rose-colored glasses were like, oh, it's just we're looking for change and that's what we're going to see because that's what we're looking for?
The major thing for me, and you see this especially in his post-game pressers, but the difference of how Bud Black and Warren Schaeffer express themselves when they're in front of a camera. Bud, very stoic, very, kind of taciturn. Sometimes he'll talk to the media and he'll tell them what they need to hear. But with Warren Schaeffer, there's been a lot more positivity, a lot more sort of, oh gosh, what's the best way to phrase this? And it really is, I guess, just an air of positivity of trying to wrap even the bad things in some good, a lot of praise for individual players, trying to build people up. And it's very clear, I think, as part of his clubhouse culture that he's trying to establish, at least for the rest of this season, is that he wants to try and build the players up after a very difficult start to the season where, as we discussed at length, the vibes in that clubhouse looked really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a lot more positivity. There's been a lot more building guys up and praise. Today's game, talking about how, Chase Dolander really toughed it out despite getting a high pitch count very early on. He immediately then praised Ryan Rollison for having a good outing. And, it's the same thing of he's never going to throw a guy under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Bud Black would never particularly throw individuals under the bus either. But instead of couching everything and here's what we could have done better, there's a lot more of, well, here's what we did do well.
Yeah. He's much better at the the compliment sandwich where he's going to praise the guy and then he's like, yeah, we need to do better. Striking out 14 times in the game, that's not gonna cut it. You can't win ball games that way. But this guy was doing this thing really good. So I agree with you where you're hearing kind of the same talking points. The delivery is just different. It's a more upbeat, more optimistic, more positive type of thing because that's who he is. He's one of the boys. And so you're seeing that difference. But what about like in-game stuff, Evan? Because you were there down in Texas. We'll talk on that in a little bit in a second. But you're there for that Rangers series. Was there anything different that you noticed while he was managing those games?
His lineup construction has been very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He's tried a lot of different new things. He's been giving some more rest days to some guys, especially, Ezequiel Tovar is back from the injured list, but did not play today, sort of taking it easy. The big thing in the Texas series to me was he tried to get everyone at least some looks at some point in the game, lots of pinch hitters, lots of pinch runners. And to me, that really came across as him evaluating what he's got. Okay, what do I have in Owen Wilson, Kyle Farmer, Nick Martini, all of that stuff? Because and Adael Amador getting more playing time. He's played significantly more than he did in the Bud Black tenure, and just sort of tinkering and trying pieces around. We've seen Hunter Goodman, he still continues to be a heavy part of this offense. He's tried Jordan Beck in the leadoff spot. He shifted Brenton Doyle down to number 5 in the order a couple times. He trying new things. And then on the other side of things, I have also seen, what we're seeing a little bit more of that we didn't really see? Pitchers throwing the fastball high, which we know is something that Bud Black did not like. He was very much against the fastball high. It was always, you got to keep that fastball low, keep it down. You got punished because you put the fastball up. And we've been seeing guys throw the fastball up, that different mixes of pitches and things like that. And so I'm interested to see where of that is coming from, Warren Schaeffer, and if any of that's also coming from, Darryl Scott, who is now no longer shackled to Bud Black. Because for a lot of the guys left in this coaching staff, it's going to be, okay, well, what do you bring to the table when somebody else is the manager? Which I'm really curious to see. But for Warren Schaeffer, it's a lot of small things to start. Like any coaching change in the middle of the season like this is not going to be a seismic shift. But you can tell that he is tinkering and trying new things and trying to get the feet of this organization back under them after they got bowled over to start the season.
Yeah. The offense, and we might touch on that a little bit, but offense is still trying to find its footing and everything. But like some of that pitching, it's been really one bad inning at the very start in the first inning, and then a guy grits it out for through the fifth or get you a couple more innings.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's partly felt like bullpen management has been a little better or something. I don't know. It's felt different. I don't know if I can pin it down, but you can tell that difference when you're watching the game after 9 years of Bud Black, 8+ years of Bud Black, to have a new guy in there and you're seeing how he manages the game. You could see that old school, kind of like the old managing where he's active in the game. Schaefer going for the counters of, okay, late in the game, a key situation here in the 6th, I'm going to bring in Brenton Doyle to pinch hit off the bench. Even though he didn't start the game because we're going to give him an off day, key situation, we're going to have him come in. We're going to have Michael Tolia come in, is a key situation. We did that on Saturday, came in, got a key hit, stays in the game. delivers a double, a crucial double that ties the game at 11. So you're seeing him a little bit more active in the game, I think, and with just more pinch hitters. I think it's the pinch hitters coming earlier, Evan. I think that's what I'm kind of noticing, because Bud Black would kind of wait until like the 8th or 9th inning. That's when I'm going to bring my pinch hitter in.
Yeah.
But instead, Warren Schaeffer's like, oh, it's the 6th inning.
Yeah.
Key hit spot.
Let's mix it around.
Tolia, you're into DH instead of Nick Martini, who's 0 for 2 at this point.
Yeah.
Let's get a new look.
Both Tolia and Doyle got 2 at bats.
Yeah.
While pinch hitting originally. And the other thing I've noticed, and I know we need to take a break shortly, so I'll be pretty quick on this. It really is the bullpen management. There's been a lot less of, okay, this guy needs to pitch 1 billion innings to eat the innings. Like he's distributed it very well so far, especially when the starters aren't going particularly long. And in the case of yesterday, where Herman was only able to go 3 innings, and you could tell that he tried to see if Herman could go longer, but things just were not going well, is he went to Angel Chivi early and only had him pitch 1 inning, despite the fact that you could argue this game was kind of out of hand, and you could even say, okay, well, I give up. We got to make guys eat, is 1 inning. And yeah, he did make Chivi wear it a little bit.
He threw 30 some odd pitches.
Yeah, he had to face 7 batters, but he then distributed it very well. Jake Bird did pitch 2 innings, but everybody else pitched 1 inning. Spread it out evenly. And I liked seeing that as well. A lot less of bringing guys in just to eat innings. It's hard to put your finger on, but it just feels better. And trying new things, like Zach Agnos came in the 7th inning and pitched really well yesterday's game, and then he turned to Seth Halverson for the save. That's another thing, is that the young guys are still getting plenty of work. Yeah,
that's the big one too, is that we had mentioned earlier, Amador playing quite a bit more. Nope, there were days Farmer's been filling the role he was supposed to fill, where he's just going to bounce around. Oh, he's at shortstop, now he's at second base, now he's at first base. He just go to floating around, instead of, well, he's cemented in every day.
Yeah, which is how it was supposed to be. And granted, you get a lot of help from having a bunch of guys back from the IL at the same time, with Freeman and Schunk and Tovar all back. And that gives him a lot more roster flexibility.
Yeah, so Warren Schaeffer, that will be interesting to see what happens, and we'll continue on this one more point after this break. So don't go anywhere here on Affected by Altitude. Plenty left to go here. Welcome back here to Affected by Altitude. Skyler and Evan here. And Evan, one little point that I wanted to bring up here. The elephant in the room is that Warren Schaeffer is the interim manager. Now, here's the question. Will the Rockies pull a Bill Schmidt like they did in 2021, where, hey, we're going to evaluate everything and see where we're at, and we're going to look, we're going to go through the search process, interview process. Are they going to do that, or is Warren Schaeffer going to do enough to prove himself to earn, to get that interim taken off by September?
Honestly, I don't know, because it would be for the best for the Rockies to interview outside candidates as well, instead of just immediately taking the interim tag off of Schaeff. And I'll be clear, I am delighted that Schaeff is the one who got the nod to be the interim manager for the rest of this season. It is well deserved, and I've been wanting to see what he can do at the helm of this team for a little bit now. And I always figured that they were grooming him to be sort of Bud's heir apparent, because, we've mentioned a couple other guys, and, Vinny Castilla does he really want to manage outside of his occasional commitments to Team Mexico and in the Mexican Winter League and stuff like that? Patrick Saunders has commented on that as well. But I do see a situation, it's a very Rockies situation, where they just lift the interim tag. Yeah. And if we use the rest of this season as an evaluation period and we go, okay, I actually really like what I've seen. I like what Warren Schaeffer has done. Let's give him, 2 seasons as the man. I would start with like a short-term contract, but it's tough because then if he does really well, someone else might poach him. Handing him the reins and seeing what he can do. But honestly, that even that depends on a lot of other stuff, which would be, one, do they replace Bill Schmidt as the GM? And two, do they let Schaeff fill out his own coaching staff?
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be the interesting thing to figure out. If they don't remove the interim, no, he's still in the running to get the job, but just has to kind of go through the interview process. They look outside and everything. But a lot of that might stem from this next question that we'll get into now, Evan, is, managers are often used as the scapegoat when really a lot of the blame can fall on the guy who's in charge of putting together the roster. And that is one Mr. Big Dollar Bill Schmidt. Is he on the hot seat at all, Evan? Is Bill Schmidt on the hot seat at all? Is he feeling the pressure, or is he just too much of a company man with Dick Monfort where, well, of course it was the manager's fault?
I do think Bill Schmidt is at least feeling the pressure. I don't know how much of it is coming internally. I saw him walking around on the field in Texas, and I know that he generally has a sort of grumpy look about him.
He looks like Grumpy Cat.
But he looked particularly unhappy when I saw him walking around in Texas. And so I wonder if he is feeling the pressure, because he should be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is the architect of where the Rockies are at right now. In addition to Dick Monfort, in addition to Bud Black, he's the scout. He's the guy. He's the talent evaluator. He is allegedly supposed to be making all of these roster decisions, and none of them have been very good.
Mm-hmm.
The draft picks haven't really worked out. The free agent signings haven't really worked out. And, he is going to take the fall for the Chris Bryant move at the end of the day, even though that is a move that has Dick Monfort's fingerprints all over them. But at the end of the day, he's still the general manager. And the problem is the general manager cannot be such a yes man that he can't, try and fight the owner on some things. And I would have, hindsight's 2020, I guess, because I did originally like the Chris Bryant signing. But now you look back and you go, well, how much did they try and fight this? Because it just has not worked at all. And for Bill Schmidt, it really is a problem, because if his draft picks aren't working out, why, if he's on the hot seat, would you want him around in 2 months when the draft is here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird with him because he's been in the organization for so long and has had such a big voice in the organization with scouting and bringing in players, and a lot of the signings that we see currently is guys that he liked. Mickey Moniak, Chris Bryant, Tyler Freeman fits into this category of guys that he's liked in the past and wanted to draft or get somehow. But now that he's in charge of the team, he finally gets to fulfill that wish. Now, of course, we know Chris Bryant is a Dick Monfort signing. But like you said, Bill Schmidt's going to have to fall on the sword because of that one. I think he's been good at pinpointing talent, especially in that draft and when he was just director of scouting for the Rockies. He selected Dexter Fowler. He got Brad Hopp. He's had a hand in a ton of these guys ultimately making those decisions. But how much of that is solely on him or the team of other regional scouts that bring, hey, we should get Charlie Blackmon. We should get Nolan Arenado. How much of a hand did he have in personally identifying a guy, saying, I'm going to bring this guy in because, I do really like him.
Yeah, and it's tough because you've got to look at, well, how much of it is a problem with talent identification?
Yeah.
And how much of it has to do with talent development, because we know the Rockies have struggled on the development side.
Yeah.
But the Rockies are also all over the place in terms of their talent evaluation, where sometimes they'll draft a guy and people will be like, that's a great pick. Sometimes they'll draft a guy and they'll be like, that's a real head scratcher. And it's the same with the fact that the team always really overvalues their guys or guys that they were high on. After mostly struggling throughout their early big league careers, Mickey Moniak and Tyler Freeman were brought in despite that, because Bill Schmidt liked them originally or wanted
Yeah.
to draft them originally. And it's that kind of thing where they're high on how they evaluate talent.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
always tend to over evaluate. It's why we cling to prospects for so long. And that causes problems in and of its own right.
Well, yeah. And there's the articles out there that have been coming out during this Rockies awful season. And it's like I think like Ken Rosenthal kind of pointing that out, where the Rockies they operate in their own world. They look at the rest of the baseball and thinking the rest of the league is doing it wrong. Only the Rockies are doing it right. Only their way is supposed to be right. And part of that could be from Bill Schmidt. Part of it's from Dick Montfort, or a lot of it's from Dick Montfort. And so it's hard because when you talk about who's running this team, it's a two-headed monster. It's Palpatine and Darth Vader. Yeah, Darth Vader's like, he's evil and stuff, but he's been corrupted and he's kind of being controlled by the guy above him, which would be Dick Montfort. So it's hard. He definitely has a lot of the blame because he's in charge of bringing guys in. He's preaches we're draft and develop. Yeah, we draft, we don't develop. And as the GM, you got to oversee that and push harder for that to improve those. But when he's coming out, Evan, and it's being like, well, I don't know where people are getting that notion that we're insular and that we're not good to work with trade-wise. It's a lack of self-awareness.
Yeah. Or when they're talking about like, I don't know where people are coming from that the Rockies don't like analytics. Well, I looked at a stat sheet 30 years ago. And I'm like, it's a very Rockies thing for the general manager, the guy in charge of the team, to compare advanced scouting and analytics to looking at a basic stat sheet.
Yeah. 30 years ago.
That's part of the problem though, is that all of these guys have been with this organization forever.
Mm-hmm.
At every level of the front office are guys who have been here almost since the beginning. Yeah. And for Bill Schmidt, it's also difficult because we don't know it's hard to gauge where he's at because he's so insular. And it's like, 2 days, a day before they fired Bud Black, he's out there going, Bud Black has my vote of confidence and everybody in this organization believes in him and believes in the message and all that stuff. And it's like, clearly not. You just fired him.
Yeah. We're not thinking about it. His job's not in jeopardy. 24 hours later, his job was in jeopardy and gone.
And it's tough because you don't know who made the final decision to fire. Ultimately, it's Dick Montfort, but did Dick Montfort originally want to fire Bud Black, or did Bill Schmidt say we have to fire Bud Black, or was it the other way around? Or it's because the messaging for this team is so bad and so weird and so insular.
Yeah,
like we had heard nothing from Dick Montfort, and we still technically heard nothing from Dick Montfort all season until he put out a statement via tweet saying the way the Rockies are playing is unacceptable and everybody should be doing better and blah, 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 and firing Bud Black. And it's just like, I wish I could follow what this team was thinking.
Yeah. And you wonder why we think they're insular and too secretive. They're not holding any secrets that everybody in baseball doesn't already know. The Rockies are playing poker, but their cards are facing out to the rest of the group, but they don't know it.
It's more like everyone else is playing poker and the Rockies are still trying to play Go Fish.
Yeah.
Or they're holding Uno cards.
They've got the old maid, Evan.
It's so aggravating.
Yeah. So I wonder what will happen with Bill Schmidt. He's what you look at. And the hard part, Evan, is that he, if he's on the hot seat, then it kind of, what does he do this summer with like coming up on the trade deadline? Because, is his power going to be limited if he's on the hot seat and Dick Montfort's like, yeah, you're going to get fired after the season. Like we're done here. You get another season of not doing anything.
Yeah.
We'll move maybe one or two guys and that's it, but nothing significant. Kyle Farmer's on a new team. Woo.
It's one of those things where I would have fired him already because then you've got at least a couple months to try and figure out what you're doing, put an interim guy in, and let's be honest, the interim guy is probably going to be like Sterling Montfort or something. Not great. But if you're going to want to execute on a new vision this coming off season, having the old regime's GM pick your draft pick in this upcoming draft makes no sense to me. And granted, there's probably going to be, depending on where the Rockies pick, there's probably going to be where are we drafting?
Fourth.
There's going to be a guy who's like a consensus. If you draft this guy in the top 5, you're probably good.
Yeah.
And especially for the Rockies, it's going to be a best talent available, best player available. But at the same time, I don't think you want to have the lame duck GM, if they do intend to fire him this year, be in charge of that or even really affiliated with that. You want to start formulating a plan, start interviewing guys now, start seeing what you got both in and outside your organization, because it's the same thing for the trade deadline too, of if he's not going to be here, why do you want him in charge of your trade deadline, in charge of roster construction and making moves and stuff like that?
Yeah. Baseball's whack like that, and it's hard to figure out, because what's the alternative if he's not there? It's more or less Dick Montfort pulling the strings behind the scenes, whoever's the interim GM, which means, never mind, Ryan McMahon's sticking around, which we'll talk about that in a second. It's kind of a lose-lose situation no matter what. So
yeah, that I can agree with.
We'll see what happens with Bill Schmidt, but you got to, maybe that seat's feeling a little warm. Now, like what Patrick Saunders this trade deadline probably is him make or break for his job. No, it could either make or break him. If he makes some moves, some much needed moves, some bold moves, and it bolsters the team, great, because then maybe he can help try to redeem his reputation a little more and put more effort in. If not, then it's okay. Then what are we doing here? Let's actually fulfill that promise of looking outside for a president of baseball ops, a new GM. Let's look outside of the organization, and Dick Montfort can step back and just let baseball people do their jobs.
I mean, there's the key thing through all of this is if the Rockies want any chance of ever being competitive, of ever taking a step into the modern era of baseball, Dick Montfort needs to step back. Like, he can still be the CEO or whatever if he wants to be, but he cannot be involved in the front office whatsoever. He needs his job to be signing the checks and keeping his mouth shut.
Yeah. That's the crux of it.
And if he can't do that, if he can't stay the CEO and not meddle, then he needs to hand the reins to somebody else. He needs to hand the reins to Sterling or Walker or somebody else to be the Rockies CEO.
Yeah.
We know now that embarrassment on the national stage is enough to get Dick Montfort to move, because the Bud Black firing was preceded by the Rockies being talked about a lot in the national media. And now that box is open, it's not going away anytime soon.
Oh, and it doesn't help when also his comments and sources saying that he wants to fight for a cap, not just on player salaries, but every bit of spending by an organization, which I hope he gets laughed out of the room by other owners.
Oh, yeah, it's pathetic and it's embarrassing. Because, like, the whole thing about a salary cap would be, okay, well, now I have money that I can put more money towards this. Something he could already be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because the Rockies are incredibly outdated when it comes to literally everything on the baseball operation side of things.
Shout out to the Cespedes Barbecue podcast guys for getting that scoop from some sources about what Dick Montfort wants in the next CBA. But we're stuck with him. We're stuck with the Montforts owning this team, which isn't all bad if they would just do what we're talking about and taking a step back, stop meddling as much, and just Surround yourself with good baseball folks and let them do their job to build this team. But Evan, we've talked enough about personnel and people not playing the game. So when we come back, we're actually going to talk about the players and the roster finally in our final segment here on Affected by Altitude. We're back here on Affected by Altitude. Skyler and Evan. My goal, Evan, is to keep this episode shorter. You like my big pause there?
Do you have on the soundboard the good luck from Star Fox 64?
My soundboard is not currently connected to my mic. I got to reconfigure some things, so it is it's on the injured list here for this game. But Evan, let's talk about some of the players here for the Rockies. First off, a big slew of guys have come back. Most notably, probably most importantly, one Ezequiel Tovar is back with the Rockies. Played the first 2 games in Arizona. Turned in his first 5-hit performance of his career, Evan. Came a double shy of the cycle. Tovey is back, and how good does that... It's good to see him back.
Yeah, he's been sorely missed, and while he doesn't necessarily elevate the team to a new level or anything like that, what he does do is make the game more fun. Like it was pretty rough. It was a rough go of things where without Tovar, lots of different guys at shortstop, and you're losing a guy who provided a key amount of the Rockies' offensive output early in the season, throughout the last few seasons, last season especially. And for him to come back, and in his second game back, he's a double shy of the cycle. He goes 5 for 6 with his first home run of the season. He did have an error, unfortunately, but how much that is rust that you've got to shake off of, he's been out for basically a month at this point after he sustained that hip contusion in the opening series of the year. And, the Rockies are bad, but they are more fun when Ezequiel Tovar is there.
Yeah, and he's a huge upgrade. No more the parade. Like Alan Trejo filled in the spot admirably after all these injuries, but he's no Ezequiel Tovar. He's a one-trick pony that was a good defensive glove. That's it. Tovar is that full package. So it's good to have him back, and you need it because now it's Kyle Farmer can then resume a bit more of the rotating infielder. Tyler Freeman's back, so that helps with that. Just that general, just utility guy off the bench who can play infield and outfield. And then Aaron Schunk, who's in there as an extra infielder for now to kind of fill things out. So it's really so nice to have Tovar back. You can just see the difference offensively, defensively. It's a boost for this team. Like you said, is it making the Rockies better overall? No, this team's still going to lose plenty of games with or without Ezequiel Tovar, but having him in there, you like your chances a little bit better with him in there as opposed to somebody else. So good to have Tovey back.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like you said, shout out to Alan Trejo. Like, he filled the spot. He played okay, not amazing.
Warm body.
Not the worst, but he was someone who could fill in. Trejo has been outrighted to AAA Albuquerque, which I don't think surprises anyone. That's pretty much what we expected to happen. Although he did have the ability to, I believe he had the ability to reject the assignment.
Yeah, he could,
because he's been outrighted previously.
Yeah.
But he, as of right now, as of today, appears to have accepted the assignment to AAA Albuquerque, and that's a good thing to have. Where now you have some extra shortstop and middle infield depth in the minor league system. Where I've talked about this before, the Rockies really didn't have a lot of depth in middle infield down in AAA. So this at least adds an extra guy. We're still waiting to see what happens to Owen Miller, who was also designated for assignment. But having Tovar back, and now you've got Aaron Schunk and Tyler Freeman back as well, who can provide more depth. Like I do feel a little bad, like we said, for Bud Black, because he really did get hamstrung with the fact that there was no depth anymore. That all of the depth guys got injured. Mm-hmm. That's tough. But getting at least Tovar back is going to make it a lot more fun to watch this season.
Yeah. So Tovy's back. Another notable thing, Carson Palmquist made his big league debut. Wasn't the best debut, but it also wasn't the worst, Evan. It was okay.
Yeah, the big thing was that Palmquist, his fastball, Mario, former Purple Rower, doing some other stuff right now, our sort of quote unquote pitching guru, pointed this out as well, that the Diamondbacks very clearly knew to look for his fastball, which is a low velocity fastball. It's fairly hittable, and because he didn't outright have perfect secondary stuff, that's going to hurt you. Yeah. But you could also see in that start the things that make him interesting, the things that the Rockies are high on, the things that could make him a very good mid to back of rotation starter for this organization. And that is that he's a very tricky lefty with a pretty decent arsenal if he can get it polished up. And I was not expecting him to throw a perfecto out of the gate or anything like that. I honestly figured that there were going to be some growing pains. It's a little more painful than I think both he or anyone else expected. But against a very tough opponent, the Diamondbacks are good. They hit the ball well for the most part, and they are very good at analytics and scouting. And that clearly showed against Carson Palmquist. But I really hope that they let him have another start after this, because I want to see what he can do once those debut jitters are out of the way and he's had a little bit more time to work.
I believe his next start would line up either against the Phillies or the Yankees.
Somewhere I believe he'd end up being the final Phillies game. Which is, again, a tough opponent. You have a soft tossing, tricky lefty at Coors Field against the Phillies. That's a tough call. But unfortunately, you can't necessarily pick and well, I mean, you can, but you also do want him to face quality opponents and see how he can develop and learn and change. And we've seen that from Chase Dollander too, where he's gotten a trial by fire in a lot of situations. And sometimes it's gone well for him and sometimes it's gone very poorly for him. But I do feel like we are starting to see Chase sort of round into form where, yeah, he was a little bit shaky to start in today's game. He threw 38 pitches in the first inning. He had over 50 pitches by the end of the second inning, but still struck out 6 batters, still only gave up 1 earned run, and made it through 4 2/3 innings, and was really only pulled because of that high pitch count where he reached 98 pitches, the most he's thrown in his big league career so far.
Mm-hmm. Also, Carson Palmquist would pitch Game 3 against the Phillies on Wednesday, is what he's currently lined up against Taijuan Walker. So be on the lookout if he gets another start. But yeah, Carson Palmquist, you like what you see, can get some mishits, stuff. Just got to locate some pitches a little better and command them a little better. Keep throwing out those 75 mile an hour dinkers.
Yeah. I'm really curious to see what the Rockies' plan is for their rotation, where right now we have Antonio Senzatela slated to start against the Phillies, but you've got to wonder how much longer the Rockies are going to turn to Senzatela as a starter. You've also got to think of when Ryan Feltner may be back with the back spasms that he's been having. And what's going to happen to Austin Gomber, who's on the 60-day IL and has not yet thrown a bullpen. It's interesting to see, and I'm glad that they turned to Palmquist to at least give him a chance.
Yeah, because unfortunately, Bradley Blaylock's brain has been broken for the time being by that Padres game, and then had a rough start in Albuquerque in his first start. Gave up about 10 runs, 10, 12 runs in Albuquerque. So starting pitching is a little iffy now. You need some guys performing and to stay healthy for the time being.
But on the bright side, Gabriel Hughes has been very strong in AA Hartford.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Sullivan is back in AA Hartford. He has completed his rehab assignment, and he is now back with the Yard Goats. So there are more guys waiting in the wing, just not necessarily at AAA yet.
Yeah, they're getting there. Next thing I want to talk about, Jordan Beck. How about that old Jordan Beck, who, since coming back, Evan, he's kind of pulled a 2024 Michael Tolia, where he's just looking more comfortable, has figured something out, and he's locking it in here at the big league level since his return.
Yeah, so Jordan Beck started the season poorly. I don't think you can really argue against that in any way, shape, or form. Where he had 20. Granted, he only had 20 at bats, but he was 3 for 20 with 3 walks, 8 strikeouts. He did steal 3 bases and have 1 ribby, but no extra base hits. And we know that in order to keep that Mike Honcho nickname, he needs to be a slugger because he's got the capability. That is how, he's toolsy. He's got all the talent in the world, but he's got to get those extra base hits.
Mm-hmm.
And since returning from being optioned to AAA Albuquerque, he's now got a much healthier 97 at bats, 108 plate appearances. He's hitting 289, 352, 660 with 4 doubles, 4 triples, 8 home runs, 15 ribbies. He's 2 for 4 on stolen bases. He's drawn 9 walks. He has struck out 28 times, so he's still striking out, and he's always going to do that. He's a Rockies hitter. But an OPS of 1.012. That's good. That'll play.
Leads the team in home runs.
He leads the team in home runs. He's only got 5 or 6 games where he hasn't recorded a hit. He's had multiple hitting streaks. He had a nice little hitting streak from May 1st through May 11th in that last game where we won against the Padres before going hitless in the first game against the Rangers. He's been a quality player, and it's really been him and Hunter Goodman, mm-hmm. the 2 guys on this team right now that are really pulling their weight.
Yeah. It's good to see that with Beck because we've seen him. Warren Schaeffer used him in the 3-hole and then has moved him up to the leadoff spot. Bud Black was hitting him in the 2-hole. He's a guy who can contribute, and he's got the pop. He's got the speed. He's got a lot of those tools that you like at the plate. So it's good to see him getting a little bit of that breakout. When the Rockies are as bad as they are, you have to find the small victories. Jordan Beck is one of them right now. And like you mentioned, Hunter Goodman, 2 guys that are providing the pop, some clutch hits. They're doing the things right at the plate, which is good to see in a lineup that is doing a lot of wrong. It's good to see some guys doing things right.
Yeah, and it's tough because, the Rockies are still losing a lot. Like in Hunter Goodman's last 30 games played, they are 5-25. But you look at his line and that is not because of Hunter Goodman. I mean, he's hitting, this dates back to April 14th, so 30 games as of the 14-12 win on Saturday, where he's hitting 333, 378, 538 with 5 homers, 7 doubles, a triple. He's doing and 24 ribbies. He's doing what he needs to. Jordan Beck is doing what he needs to. And of all the many problems with this team, you can very clearly say that those 2 are not the problem.
Absolutely. One last thing we wanted to touch on here. Let's do it. Talking here about Ryan McMahon, Evan, really quickly. Was off to a horrendous start. He's actually been doing well here in the month of May. He's picked things up a little bit here in May. But Bob Nightingale, USA Today, so you can always take these with a grain of salt. But Ryan McMahon, we've seen his name float around on the trade market or trade rumors here these last couple of years. But I'm not saying that the teams like the Dodgers and the Cubs are teams interested in Ryan McMahon or keeping tabs on him. With the way the Rockies are, they could be getting some calls here. Evan, what do you make of this? Is Ryan McMahon going to finish the season as a Colorado Rocky?
I don't know, and that's the problem. Because the correct answer should be no. And that's a shame because I love Ryan McMahon, and he's been a Rockies lifer, and, he's dedicated himself to this team. But the Rockies are rebuilding, and they need to move on. Mm-hmm. And Ryan McMahon, who, honestly, they probably should have traded last season when his value was at his peak. He was an all-star. He had a pretty good first half. And then he imploded in the second half. And he started off this season very, very poorly, where his trade value is probably as low as it's ever been. He ended the month of April hitting a $147. That's rough.
Mm-hmm.
That's real bad. And only 2 home runs for the guy who's supposed to be your primary power hitter.
Yeah.
And he's really rounded out here in the month of May, hitting 333 for on base percentage of 443. He's got 10 walks to 14 strikeouts. He's having a good May so far. And I don't think that should be discounted. He has legitimately been good in the month of May. But that just means right now that his trade value is rebuilding, and you've got to capitalize on it, because if he is at the end of May even, or even right now, doing as well as he is right now, you've got to jump on any opportunity to move him where you're not going to have to eat the bulk of that contract, because he's due $32 million still
over
throughout
the
the life of that contract. And that's a tough pill to swallow. And I know people are going to complain, because they always do about this, but the Rockies are probably going to have to send some cash along to get somebody to take Ryan McMahon's contract and to get a pretty good prospect return. But I think if either the Yankees or the Cubs want Ryan McMahon and are willing to give you something, and probably not their top prospect, like the Cubs are probably not going to part with Cade Horton and send him to the Rockies for Ryan McMahon. But there are guys on that list who I like and could do some good things in a Rockies uniform.
Yeah.
You got to do it.
Yeah, you can't be sentimental about it. You can like these players, but Dick Monfort, the goal isn't to keep your favorite players around because you just like them. It's to win baseball games, and Ryan McMahon's not doing that for you right now. And if you're strapped for cash because you have to pay, Chris Bryant $27 million through 2028, you can shave, at least 20 some odd million maybe off your books by trading away Ryan McMahon and sending some cash. If you have to, you got to find those opportunities to make you better. You got guys coming up, Kyle Karros, other guys that are on the way. Charlie Condon needs to find out where he's going to be playing. He should not be an outfielder, Evan.
No, Charlie Condon's future should be at first base.
But you got to figure out these options, types of things with Ryan McMahon. And yeah, we all like him, but if the trade comes, you got to move him. That's what a team in your situation, if you had done your diligence and built your team up better and had developed them, you wouldn't be having this conversation. Be like, yeah, Ryan McMahon's a key piece. But when you're 8 and almost near 8 and 30, whatever, you can't really. You've lost the luxury of being able to hold on to a Ryan McMahon.
Yeah, and even sentimental, like the Rockies did him a solid. It was a very personable, very loyal move to keep him last year when he requested not to be traded because he had a newborn and didn't want to shake things up. I get that. Okay. But now, like you said, you don't have that luxury. And both the Yankees and the Cubs have prospects that I would want to see us make a move on, prospects that make sense for the organization, or even guys, probably most hilariously, there's a prospect with the Cubs named Jonathan Long, and he is a very Rockies prospect. He is a power bat with positional versatility. He's listed as both a first baseman, an outfielder, and a third baseman. But even then, I don't hate the profile. But overall, like, there's lots of pitchers, there's lots of position players that the Rockies could try and go for in exchange for Ryan McMahon's services, of two teams that could use a good defensive third baseman and could maybe help him figure out some of his hitting woes.
Now, what if, like Bob Nightingale talked about, that the Los Angeles Dodgers come with the best offer of all these teams that are interested in Ryan McMahon?
No. You do not trade with the Dodgers, ever. It's the same as in the NFL. You do not trade with the Chiefs. You do not trade with the Patriots when they were the dynasty. You do not help the enemy.
Now, would you rather Ryan McMahon or Nolan Arenado get acquired by the Dodgers?
Neither.
But you have to pick one, Evan.
I sure don't.
In this hypothetical, you do.
Gun to my head?
Sure.
Shoot me.
Oh. And on that note, that'll bring this edition of Affected by Altitude to an end. Oh my goodness. We have, but real quick, Evan, what was the best part of your Texas trip?
Lots of really good food. Like, I know it's overplayed, but oh man, Texas barbecue is so good. Went to this place. It's called Hard 8 Pit Barbecue. It's between like Plano and Frisco, about 30-45 minutes outside of Dallas proper. That brisket melts in your mouth. You barely need to chew it. You walk in, it's this cool brick building where you walk right into where the smoking and grilling area is. It's hot, it's smoky, it smells like meat. They'll, right at the front of the line, they'll grill a steak for you as you please. And then you walk up and they've got all the meats and you just order it by the amount you want. I'll take a half pound of brisket and a half pound of hot links and all this stuff. Oh, so good. Also had this thing called a Texas Hamburger Dog at a little hole in the wall burger place called Burger House. It is a double cheeseburger with chili, a full hot dog cut in half, grilled onions, jalapenos, and mustard. And it was delicious. Lots of good food. I did really enjoy, and I'm going to talk about my experience in my rock pile. The Rockies were bad, and they lost all 3 games, but I did enjoy, following the Rockies down to Globe Life and watching all those games. Also had a lot of fun. I went to the opener for the Silver Boot Series, the Astros versus the Rangers at Globe Life. Watched Jacob deGrom pitch. It was really, really fun. Was treated to an absolutely delightful pitcher's duel. Got to see some minor league baseball. It was great. It was a really nice trip.
Right on. I hung out here. I don't go anywhere.
You could.
Yeah.
You could apply for press credentials for the Savannah Bananas game coming up in Albuquerque.
I don't want to drive to Albuquerque. New Mexico drivers scare me. It's scary driving down there.
It's scary driving in a lot of places. There's the one thing. People in Texas drive like maniacs.
Turns out people everywhere are just maniacs. Wherever you drive, you're a maniac.
Pretty much, yeah. But
fun times. But Evan, where can the folks find you?
Oh, golly. You can find me over on Blue Sky at EvanLang27. I would love to hear from you. You can also find me over on www.purplerow.com, writing your Monday Rock Piles and your weekly Pebble Reports. Please read the Pebble Report. I would love to get some more engagement on those and then hear people's thoughts about them because, I'm very proud of what I do in terms of highlighting our minor league guys in a positive and constructive way. And I hope those that read it enjoy it because it's one of my favorite things to work on. Remember that you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on all of your favorite podcasting platforms of choice, including iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Apparently, Google Podcasts does not exist anymore. That's what Skyler said.
It hasn't for like a year.
So I didn't know that, but you can't find us there because they don't exist. And you can also always watch the video version on our YouTube channel. Remember that you can also find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on all of your favorite social media platforms, including YouTube, at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop. Skyler, where can the folks find you at?
Find me over on Purple Row, writing Wednesday Rock Piles, and then over on social media, at Skyler Timmons over on Twitter, and stimmons13.bsky.social over on Blue Sky. And then be sure to go check out Rooftop Mingles. We just recently had one with Jared Thomas, good friend of the show. He's a good fellow. He is the homie. He got attacked by a bee in the middle of our interview. Right for a second, but good times. But we appreciate all your support, and be sure to follow us over with Purple Row with our playback watch-along streams. Had one this past weekend with our good buddy Mac Wilcox. So since we're Purple Row adjacent, they are our birth parents of this podcast. And so support them. It helps support us over there as well. And just a fun time watching the Rockies. We're 0 for 2, Evan. We chose some pretty bad games to watch.
I know
along.
two of the worst games of the season is our watch-alongs.
Hey,
it is, Chris Desai is over at DNVR, who's like, it figures that the game right after you chose to broadcast was like the most fun and exciting Rockies game of the season.
Guess what happened the following day after we did our first initial test was the 21-0 shutout. What did they do the next day?
Had a delightful win.
And they fired Bud Black. So you guarantee a win after we do our playback stream, I guess.
Apparently.
But
does that mean we need to playback stream every night?
No, because then they would lose every night.
But if we guarantee a win the night, so every other then.
Yeah, so it's every other day we'd have to do one. Anyways, we appreciate you following along, for all your support, tuning in. Let us know your thoughts and comments down in the comment section, wherever you may find those things. But until next time, I'm Skyler. That's Evan. This has been Affected by Altitude. Farewell. This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.